I'm joined today by a wonderful guest, one of my newest mentors, actually, for which I'm super grateful. She's an online marketing specialist. She's built a community of millions online. She has sold multiple businesses well. And she's also pregnant, but we shouldn't talk about that, right?
That's not my main focus on
No.
my content, Amy.
Hi, Danielle Canty. Welcome in this makeup studio. Hello, and welcome to Fail to Win, the show where we love to make mistakes and learn from them so you can turn your passion into profits and live life on your own terms. I'm Amy van der Putten from Fast Forward Amy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode with simple strategies every Tuesday.
Thank you for having me, and I'm going to make a particular effort to speak slower than I normally do, because us Brits do have a tendency to speak very quickly.
I will also try to speak slower. I always thought my accent was fine, and then a few weeks ago I put this anonymous question box on. Anonymous questions are really dangerous. I'll always tell people, like, be nice when you ask me questions. And someone was like, do you think you have a good accent? I was like, oh, I thought I did, but apparently I don't.
Well, I would always say, to have an accent often means you're speaking, like, say, another language, and most people can only speak one. Yeah. So kudos to anyone who can speak more than one language fluently. That's all I'm saying. I'm not criticizing accents. I can't speak two languages fluently, so I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah. How would you introduce yourself? Because I went there.
Gosh. Wow, I've never been asked. Well, I guess I have been asked that question in the sense of, like, hey, how would you want your introduction? Pretty much as you said. I would have said definitely a digital marketing specialist and community builder. Having, spent the last 5 years building and scaling Bossbabe and then helping other women grow their businesses. I would also say things like I'm a Virgo, Enneagram 3, which is an achiever in my personality. I would say I'm going to give you more of an interesting one. I would say I wasn't a born entrepreneur.
No, I noticed that. That's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I always, like, you're the left brain person, right? Is it like visionary and integrator? Do you identify with those terms or not?
I actually don't. What's really interesting for me, I once did this brain mapping study with someone, and it doesn't really have like a commercialized name, but they test your brain when you're in a relaxed state, and they test your brain when you're in a stress state. And my tendency is to be on the full-on creative side when I'm relaxed, and under stress, I flip completely to the opposite side.
The control.
And she was like, I've never seen a brain do this, which means I can actually play in both fields really well. So I would say I'm really fortunate. It's a blessing and a curse. I'm kind of a chameleon. I find it very, very easy to adapt to the people that I'm working with or alongside, which means I'm a really good team leader, and a really good partner, because I can adapt normally when most people can't. So if I'm working with someone who is really, really strong visionary and really struggles with integration, I'll take more of an integration role. But then when I'm working with someone who actually needs more of that vision and they can do the integration, I'll flip. So for me, it's either or, just whatever gets the job done.
Yeah. So how was because you said I'm not a born entrepreneur. How did you roll into it then? Let's dive a little bit into that story.
So, I grew up in the UK, and around the age of like 14, 15, you kind of get asked, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they give you a list of jobs. It's like a lawyer, policewoman, nurse, doctor, like the generic jobs, accountant, teacher, the things that we all know. And so you look through this list and you decide. Now, at that point, I was like, my dad had an injury, and so he had many injuries. It's the theme of this story. And so he'd seen a chiropractor, and I decided, you know what? This chiropractor I met loved his job. I was actually thinking about doctor, but every doctor I met was miserable. Sorry if there's any doctors listening to this. They were all miserable and they hated their jobs. And so I went into chiropractic because I really liked being able to have someone walk in and leave feeling 10 times better. So when I went to university, I did a vocational degree, had no intention to be a chiropractor. And an entrepreneur. Most people you will hear who have got entrepreneurial stories, they'll have been like, oh, I was selling this as a kid. Yeah, I was like hustling, all these pieces. That was not me at all. What I did do though, is I had like 4 jobs. I was like teaching dance. I was running school in the summer holidays. I was running school camps. I was working in a retail store, and I was babysitting. So I was rich as a kid because I used to have all this money coming in for these jobs that I had. But none of it was entrepreneurial. It was just really a mentality of working hard. I would do my schoolwork. I was really good at being productive and balancing the things that I needed to do. And so I built like this work ethic up. And so as I went into chiropractic, graduated at the age of kind of 21, coming into my 22nd year, got a job, that's when really I started becoming more entrepreneurial, because what I realized was as I was getting better at the job that I had, I was like, hang on a minute, I'm billing this much, but taking this much home. What would happen if I owned the clinic? And chiropractic's definitely a career where there's opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Lots of chiropractors own their individual clinics. And so at the age of, I think I was about 20, I really need to get this timeline situated in my head. I must have been about like 20, 21. I've been there 2 years. So I must have been about 23 pushing into 24. And I turned to my boss who was like in his 50s and I said, you have 5 clinics and I want to buy one of them. And he just looked at me like, who the hell does this chick think she is? And it merely
with my rich kid money.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? I didn't have a lot of money to purchase it, but what I knew was I'd always started Googling and asking questions of the people who bought clinics, and there was financing that you could do with the person you were buying it off. So I knew that I actually didn't need that much money to buy it, and I could negotiate a 10-year payment plan with him. So there are all these different aspects where I'd started realizing that, hang on a minute, I don't want to be working for someone for the rest of my life. I want to have independence. I want to have my own cash flow. I want to be in charge of my destination. And so very quickly from that age of like 23, 24, I started understanding, well, how am I going to go about this? Now, long story short, I did end up buying into clinics and ended up building one of the fastest primary healthcare brands in the UK. We had physiotherapy, we had GP, we had chiropractic. And what really happened was as I built that and had so much of the life that I thought I wanted, and I don't know if anyone relates to this on paper, I kind of felt like I got on this treadmill. And I ended up on this treadmill and I was like, oh, this is it. It's just, this is the life that I'm going to have. I could see my life being that 24, 25-year-old at this point, all the way up to 50. I could see exactly what that was going to look like. And I had this realization of like, oh, I don't know if this is what I actually want. I don't know if I want to be chained to a chiropractic desk and work in 15-minute appointments. I don't know if I want to work from a room where I can't even have the windows like open because of like privacy. I don't know if I want to be, I might have financial freedom, but I don't have location freedom. And what does that mean for me? And so it really from that point, which was 2016, sent me into this conversation with myself around, okay, I've achieved these things that I thought I wanted. When I decided at the age of 14 or 15 that this is what I would life I wanted, great. But now as a 25, 26-year-old woman with another 10 years experience, is this now what I want? And I realized that it wasn't. And so then I went into my next career.
Which was?
So in 2016 was when I first really decided, and I think everyone has a catalyst in their life which really pushes them. And mine was my dad had a skiing accident. So I started having these feelings. My dad had a skiing accident. If anyone skis, it was a really simple blue run in the Alps. He hit the deck at 68.9 mile an hour and fractured his pelvis. Oh. And so there was helicopters, there was, transfers to different hospitals and major surgery. And what happened was I had to leave him in France and head back to the UK to run my clinics. And I realized at that point, you know what? It's time. I really want that location independent business. And I want to share this part of the story, and I want people to really hear this because this is really important. That was 2016. It took me 2 years to found Bossbabe. In between time, I was Googling, I was trying Amazon companies, I was trying, I even looked at network marketing. I was thinking about, okay, let me get some coaching certificates because I know about business. Like, what could I do here? And I think that's really important because quite often people think, oh, I try one thing and then it automatically works for me. But what often happens is whenever you're building businesses, you've got to find that market fit. You've got to find where what you love meets what the demand for is in the market. And so it took me around 2 years of trying various things to realize that as an ambitious woman who wanted to say, hey, I love my life, but I want more. Hey, I have earned great money, but I want to earn more money. I felt really lonely and embarrassed saying that. I couldn't say that to any of my friends.
Because you were doing so well at such a young age.
My best friends were a doctor and a lawyer. They thought entrepreneurship was absolutely crazy. And what am I doing? My parents see me spend and put myself through college or university. And, I really invested in this career. So who was I? Who was I to think that I could possibly change at this point when I had invested so much into it? But there was just something inside of me that was no, you've got to do this now. Now is the time. And I wanted to honor that. So I just started moonlighting, weekends and evenings. I would be trying these new things. I was investing in mentors to help me. I was putting my own money on the line to figure these pieces out. And as I went through that journey of feeling hang on, I'm lonely as an entrepreneur, that's when the light bulb went off when I actually met Natalie, who became my business partner in Bossbabe, around, hang on a minute, I feel lonely as an entrepreneur. You feel lonely as an entrepreneur. I feel embarrassed to say I want to earn more money. You feel embarrassed that you want to earn more money. Do you think this is a common theme that other women are having too? And at that point, this is 2018, there wasn't really anyone doing the quotes. There wasn't really any there were a couple, but there weren't really as many as there are today. Women founded businesses doing really on this empowering movement to say to women, hey, you can show up unapologetically ambitious. That didn't really exist. And so when we launched in 2018 with this kind of sassy, empowered voice that was no, you want it, you go after it. That's what we were about. It really took off and a lot of people related to it. And so that's really then what took the journey from Bossbabe over that next, 5 years, becoming a multi-million-dollar and household name.
Yeah, that many people have tried to copy.
Yes, many.
Because you can't imagine the world on Instagram without the quotes, but you guys made it big.
Yeah, it was when we first started, not many at all.
Yeah, before we tap into what happened there and then how you grew that, I think what's so relatable maybe, or something I recognize, is you accomplished so much and then you were maybe this is not what I want.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I bought my dream house. I had $1 million launch and it was really great. It was a lot of expansion really quickly. And then afterwards, I started being a little bit adrift, I think, because I'd accomplished so much at a young age. And I was oh, but wait a minute. It's a pandemic. I'm stuck in this house now. I'm not traveling. I always saw myself travel. I never wanted to stay in Belgium, but my brothers all left. So I was someone has to stay close to my parents. They'll always tell me you can still leave. We'll just follow you. So that's fine.
Sweet.
And then realizing that is not what you want for a lot of people comes as a shock. I saw this with my friends a lot. They graduated university, they started their jobs, and your whole life you're working towards exams and more exams and university and get the degree. And you get the degree, you get the job at the big 4 consultancy firms, which is what a lot of people in my environment did. And then they're well, this sucks. This is not what I want.
Yeah, and I think that's a common feeling that a lot of people have, and we get to normalize that. And we also get to give permission for change. It's really interesting to me that people get so attached to their own stories, their own narratives that they create. And the facts are, we change as people, we evolve as people. And that's great. We should celebrate that. Wouldn't it be terrible if we didn't change over 10 years? Wouldn't it be terrible if we were this exactly same person we were 20 years ago? Goodness help us, we're just teenagers running around constantly, right? So change is a really important thing. And I think it should actually be honored and seen as an act of bravery when you want to move towards something new from everything that you know. And just giving yourself permission, because I think lots of people actually block themselves. I always say in entrepreneurship, most people will take themselves out the race. So often people think, how do you do it? What's the strategy? What's all of these pieces, right? And they're in the starting blocks. Very few people actually even leave the starting blocks. most people would just take themselves out the race, be like, oh, I don't know, so I'm not going to do it. Or hang on, I couldn't possibly try that. Hang on a minute, I didn't know how to do an online business. I'm a chiropractor. What did I know? You know, and really people won't even try. And so I think that's a really important message to get across to people. You don't have, just because you decided something 10 years ago does not mean it has to be how you act and what you live by now. Things can change and things can evolve, and that's just a lot of power in that. And when you give yourself that power, when you give yourself that, hey, I'm okay to change my mind, that's when actually you can see the rapid growth that you do, and you can actually build a life that you're like truly, genuinely happy with.
Yeah. I think the same goes for relationships. Sometimes you start a relationship and you're like, you're so in love, you tell everyone I'm going to marry this person. Or maybe you're in love and you buy a house and have 2+ kids, and then all of a sudden you realize, this is my story, that it was not going well and the relationship was not what you wanted, and you have to make really difficult decisions. I think so often we grow and we should be proud of it, and then we are not proud of it, but we stress out about it. Whereas it's actually a good thing. And the same with figuring things out, taking the 2 years to start a new thing or trying to make it profitable. I used to think, I looked at Marie Forleo a lot. I was always really inspired, and I would think like, oh, her videos are so pretty and my videos should be just as pretty. And then I was like, but Amy, she's been at this for such a long time. She has a professional team. She got her hair done. Because I was like, what do I do with my hair? And I told myself, you have time, because I always had this feeling by October, I need to have everything figured out. I always thought like, it needs to be done. It needs to be done. And then I started realizing you really do have to start embracing the journey, because there is basically no end point. Don't
judge your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 20. That's like the biggest learning that I ever had. Like those people who started, they started. They were a beginner at some point. They had 0 followers. They had 0 sales. They had 0 knowledge. Like you build it. And I think sometimes, you know, we were talking about failing, and you don't actually fail if you don't stop trying. And also, I don't see any failures or stumbles as a negative thing. Like that's actually how you learn. You learn the most when you actually make mistakes. Like that's the way you see a lot of the rapid growth, because you remember the pain of it. Like you won't do that again. And even if you think back to children, like 2 analogies come to mind. 1, you don't ever tell a child, oh, you fell 3 times, don't bother to walk now. Like give up. No, like keep going. And it might take one kid and they might walk at 9 months. Another kid might take to 18 months. But no one's telling them not to keep going and not to try it. They're just on their own journey. And so I think that's really, really important to remember, is that we sometimes rob ourselves of the experience. And second of all, most children will do something again until it hurts them. Like we learn that, oh, hang on a minute, hot means pain, right? Ow, that hurt. If you tell a child it's hot, are they actually going to really listen to you most of the time? Yeah. No. At some point, like, think about it. I'm sure every single person listening to this has burnt themselves at some point. They now understand the consequences of something being hot. And so that's the way I look at it. Any mistakes that I make, I'm like, oh, I really got a big lesson there. I really learned that. And you bet your bottom dollar I won't do that again, because now I've got the pain from it. And so I'm going to make sure that I don't put myself in that situation again, or I'm going to learn exactly what I need to do to make this, that, or that successful the next time I do it. So I think sometimes like we frown upon the failures, or we frown upon our own mistakes, whereas actually that's often where most of the growth comes from.
Yeah. I saw a video last week and it spoke about the domino effect. When one bad thing happens, apparently our brain kind of just like erases all the good we've done and only focuses on bad. I burnt myself once, figuratively, very hard. I was very bad at my mail. I was always like, I'm an entrepreneur, mail and admin, I hate it. And I lived in this apartment a few years ago, and it was just like a really dirty hallway. And the mail was just everywhere. So it was also not easy to go and grab everything. And then I had to go to court because I missed something really, really important. I got burnt. It cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of money to get out of that situation. Oh, wow. I've actually never told anyone about that. I was horrified. I was so ashamed. Yeah. But then I was like, well, okay. I told my my boyfriend about something like this yesterday. I was like, okay, so what I did, I'd had this at some point with not being good with my numbers in the beginning. All of a sudden I had to pay a lot of taxes, and I'd miscalculated some stuff because I actually didn't realize that I was making more money. And then I had to pay more taxes all of a sudden. And I was horrified because of my childhood. I'd seen a lot of ups and downs, and I was always like, it's a number. It's not that difficult. You should know how much you need to pay. And that happened, and I had all of these emotions. And then my coach at the time, she told me like, okay, but now forgive yourself and promise yourself you're not going to do that again and move forward. And just like treating yourself with compassion when that happens has been such a game changer, because we are all so hard on ourselves.
And often we think that other people haven't made mistakes, and everyone has made mistakes. And so, you know, I think you're right, just being kind to yourself. Sometimes we hold ourselves to a higher standard than we actually hold other people. And we're like, oh my goodness, how dare I make this mistake? But again, the key thing is like, everyone makes them. They might be different to yours, but everyone makes mistakes. And second of all, that is how you learn. Like you say, you will be opening your mail from now on, I'm sure.
Now I'm like, how long has it been? Because I've been here in LA. And so obviously this conversation is why I just told you before we started recording, I had recently changed my name to the Play to Win podcast. And now I want to change it, or maybe by this point I have changed it to Fail to Win when this airs.
I like Fail to Win because I do think that is that whole conversation that makes it okay.
I think the perfectionists are not going to like it.
That's the edge, because perfectionists often stall. Yeah. So I would say I was a recovering perfectionist. And I think that throughout my childhood, I was definitely like a perfectionist. And you know, even now I see it in certain aspects of my life. If I'm furnishing my home and I'm like, oh my God, it takes ages to make a decision because I don't want to make the wrong decision around like what furniture to buy, right? I don't do it in business because I have to move quickly. And I've learned, but you know, like when certain areas you like cure it somewhere, you can see it.
I have it in my house as well. My house is still not decorated after 3 years. And I'm like, how?
But I'm like, nah, the biggest thing that helped me with business was being, if it's 80% perfect, it's done. Like you can never get, because I'll give you a really, I'll give you a grounded share of what happened to me. So basically when I first started Bossbabe, I was a chiropractor. I knew a lot of business strategy. I knew a lot of sales strategy from that aspect. But Natalie had grown up on social media. She was well used to being social media. So she was doing a lot of our social media aspect. And I was there doing the operations, the finances, the customer service, the product, all those pieces. And so we kind of divided and conquered for a long period. And she was like, hey, why don't you start building on social media? And I was like, oh, no, I can't possibly do that. Like, that's not me. I don't want a personal brand.
I've always wondered what went on behind the scenes.
I don't want it. And I had like a trillion other things to do in the business. I was like, no. Anyway, like more and more people would like start asking me, and I realized that people were relating to Natalie and what they were seeing on social media, but there were a lot of people that were relating to me where they were like, wait, I'm not a natural on social media. Like I don't want to show, but I do want a business, and how do I do that? And so I really went on a journey from about 2019, particularly through to 2020 as well, like really discovering how I could show up on social media. And it really was, first of all, one of the battles that I came up against was that I would write a post and I didn't think it was good enough, so I wouldn't post it at all. Mm-hmm. But what's better? A post that's not good enough getting posted, or no post at all? What gets the more likes?
Well, even if you only get one like, it's still more than zero.
And so I really started like, well, hang on a minute. If I'd posted it, then at least it would have got some engagement versus not at all. So that was a really big piece of me. And then second of all, the other thing that really motivated me, and I share this because you'll all have your whys, but understanding sometimes something you are doing for yourself is really difficult, but when you do it for somebody else, it's so much easier. And so I couldn't show up on social media consistently for myself, but when we had the society, like where we had this group for women entrepreneurs, I ran a challenge in there, and it was a 30-day challenge that I said, I will do it with you. I will show up every day on stories. Oh, I couldn't even show up face-to-camera stories. That was new for me. I'll show up on stories with you for the next 30 days because I realized that if I didn't do it, then they weren't giving themselves permission to do it either. And so that empowerment came for me around like, okay, if I can't do it for me, let me do it for them, because they also need to have this message. Like, I'm not the only one who's struggling to put themselves out there. I'm not the only one who's struggling with imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so really working through that battle. So whatever you're doing, I always think if you're finding yourself plateauing or finding yourself making excuses, understanding your why is really important.
Yeah. I see this a lot with launches. I had it a few years ago. I was in a really big launch and I was going through a breakup during my launch. So I hadn't shared about it. It kept showing up. People kind of like got the gist. I was like literally the day after my breakup doing a live because I was in the biggest launch of the year. And I was like, for me, it would be fine to stop. But then I saw my team and I was like, can't just like not show up for my team and for my clients, because I realized in the very last week of the launch, I thought, you know what, I've made enough money. It's been going well. I could just stop now. Like, what is that close card face? I was literally like, what if I stop now? And I just sat down and I realized if I stop now, that's nice for me. But I knew statistically there would be about 50 more people signing up for my program, which I knew was going to change their life. So I was like, I can't do that to those people. I have to show up, and because otherwise they can't join the program. And that's when I realized when you don't always have to believe in yourself, but you have to believe in what you're doing and what you're offering, and that will get you through the hard days.
Yeah, 100%. Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Powerful.
So was
Finding that why.
the realization of one post is still more than 0 posts? Was it that you were comparing yourself to other people or being so good in the business and thinking, I don't want to be a beginner on socials, or what happened there?
It was more that I just felt like it wasn't a good use of my time. I was like, this isn't a good use of my time. Like, I'm better. There's all these other things that need my attention that make the business work.
Yeah.
Why would I waste time posting on social media?
Fast forward a few years later, and I saw a video, I think it was in January, of you walking down the stairs in like bikini bathing suit skirt, just flaunting. I was like, wow.
You know what happened with that too, though? No? I did not know that was going to be posted. That I had like an album with my social media manager, and she put that together, and I was mortified. I was like, oh my God.
And now it's your pinned post on your profile.
Yes. The glow up, the LA glow up. Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, but it just shows you like you can change and people can change, and I think, you know, that's the biggest thing that I think I've given myself is just there was 2 reasons I didn't show up on social. One was that I'm too busy. And like, what's the point? Like, I have so many other things. Like, my hourly rate is worth so much more than
I shouldn't be
on,
editing this. I shouldn't be writing this.
Yeah, like it's just not worth my time when was having like legal aspects or finance aspects, or, you know, things that I effectively was, you know, $1,000 an hour jobs to do, right? Why am I going to just start on social media when it's not going to move the needle? And so we're better me focusing on this aspect. And then the second one, if I'm really real and vulnerable, I would say was probably I struggled with being a people pleaser. Like, I like to make people happy. And so I think I was also worried that maybe people wouldn't like me on social media. Like, maybe I wasn't good enough to be on social media. Or another one I would think is like, oh, why does anyone want to watch me on social media? Like, what have I got to say? Like, who cares? Like, what? Like, want to see like what I'm having for dinner? Like, I don't know. And so like, that took me a long time to realize and understand my pillars and what I wanted to speak about, and understand that no, actually people were interested in that, and that actually helped them in their journey and move them forwards. And, you know, if people do follow me on social media, they'll know I've always been really vulnerable about all these things, because I think it's actually really dangerous when people don't share their vulnerabilities and how it took them a while to get from A to decide to even step out and to get to B and C. And so I've always been like really vulnerable around like, hey, it took me a long time to figure out, 1, I wanted to show up on social media, and 2, how to, is in the sense of like how to position my personality, my brand, so that I felt like it was well represented and translated well. Because I personally also didn't like the highlight reel. Like, I didn't want to just be like, oh, my life's amazing, why is yours not?
Yeah, then you instantly hate people. I saw a saying about that a while back, like, share the scabs, not the wounds, like share about it a little bit afterwards. But I don't know, I used to sometimes like cry on my social media, and I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. For me, it was actually a sign that I really needed to reach out to my own people more. Yeah. The fact that social media had become my safe space, I was like, well, this is not good. That means you were actually feeling very alone in your private life. Yeah. For me, at least, like, no judgment to other people. But I looked at the whole, for me, it's very American, like showing the scabs, not the wounds. And like, let's not disrupt the perfect marketing story. What's your stance on that? Would you rather share everything in the moment?
I keep my No, I don't share things.
You're very mysterious. You know
I'm
that?
private on social.
Yeah, very private.
Like I wanna come in and teach things. Like I think my mum's a teacher, so I think I'm much more of a teacher and mentor archetype. Like I really, really love like telling people or like sharing with people how they can go from A to B and sharing my mistakes with people. I'm like, hey, this is the thing that I did and this is how I overcame it. It doesn't really interest me. Like when you just touched on it, like I just announced my pregnancy, but I chose to announce it like after 6 months because I was like, well, why? Like it's not a value add like to anyone who's watching me for my marketing content. Like it's not a value add. And just also thinking like, you know, I just think it's not even like I want to keep it private. I'm just also want to be sensitive to the fact that people, you know, if I go to Starbucks, I'm going for a coffee and a cake. I'm not going for a 3-course meal. And so the way I see my social media is like people are coming because they want a certain thing from me, and I'm happy to deliver that. I'm not now all of a sudden going to become a mommy blogger. If that was in my heart and I wanted to, amazing. I know people have transitioned their brands, but that's not in my heart. I don't want to do that. I want to stay as like, oh, I know what to expect from Danielle. You're going to get amazing business content. You're going to get content around confidence, imposter. You're going to get it real and raw behind the scenes of building a business. But what you're not going to get is all of a sudden me sharing like and I don't get me wrong, like I would definitely share. I'm not secretive in the sense of I don't share the hard things. I just think social media is a harder place to tell the full story as well as podcasts. Like I was obviously doing the Bossbabe podcast every single week. Like that was a much easier place to share the longer journey. So like people who listen to that probably knew me, like got to know me a lot more about my vulnerabilities and imposter syndrome or, you know, lack of confidence.
Will you share the view of your house?
Will I share the view of my house? Probably not.
It's a good location.
It's a good location, yeah.
So you've slipped a couple of times. You've said had and was because you built Bossbabe to the brand that, I mean, everyone who is listening should know. Yeah. But you're talking in the past tense.
Yeah, because I exited.
Congratulations, because it's not like congratulations on a pregnancy, but it's also congratulations on making this big move.
I'm telling you what, it's been a big year.
Wow. House, baby, exit. Anything else we need to know?
Just the marriage next, I'm sure. It's been an amazing journey. And I really, really believe in this concept that, you know, people and things come into your lives as chapters and books. You don't just read one book in your life. It's more like I see my life like a trilogy of books, like several different volumes. And my first volume was about my chiropractic degree and my chiropractic career, and I learned so much, and everything that I've taken from there then helped me move into Bossbabe. And I think that just like with careers, you transition and you learn, and then you see new opportunities, you see new visions for things. And it happened that, you know, Natalie and I had the same vision for a really, really long time. We had very similar lifestyles, and that just started to change. And when you have two visionaries with different ideas of how they want to build a company, something has to shift. And we always treated Bossbabe like our baby, like that was our baby and what's going to serve the baby best. And so I just decided I had other interests as well. There were lots of things I was excited about, and building a SaaS platform to help build communities. Got my marketing newsletter because I wanted to give some really good like technical advice and pieces. And I was like, you know what? I think this chapter's come to its end. And I'm always really, really grateful for the lessons and the things that I learn along those ways, because I don't ever think I'll be at, you know, step 5 without step 4, step 3, step 2, and step 1. And so, but the way I am at step 5 is different from the way I was at step 1, and vice versa. And so, yeah, I just made the decision that it was like time to kind of go our separate ways. And we had discussions on who was going to be, you know, or who wanted to, etc., run Bossbabe. And then I was like, you know what? I have so many other passions. Like, let me go and do these things.
It's very brave. I imagine there's a lot of mindset work that goes into it. Like, it's a really brave and bold decision. So, yeah. Yeah.
I just have this... You know what I've realized about myself? I just think where there's a will, there's a way. It's funny because someone reflected to me to that. Like, first of all, I've never known anyone's life change as quickly as yours does. And then second of all, I never you're like, I never feel like I'm kicked down. Like I'm always like, oh, that was a learning. That happened because this was meant to happen. So I'm not particularly religious, but I do believe in I just have faith that everything will be fine. And I
Did
think
you
for
always
me,
have that?
I think I've had it for, yeah. Because I was thinking about this when I applied for my chiropractic degree. In the UK, you can apply for 8 universities. So you can apply to 8 universities, a maximum of 8. And sometimes you can do 1 university but 2 courses, but you have 8 options. I applied one. There was only one place that did, there's 2 places that did chiropractic in the UK. One of them I didn't like and I couldn't afford because it was $9,000 for the first year, or £9,000 for the first year, and I couldn't afford that. So,
okay, you've gotten to a point where you say dollars before pounds. That means you've lived here long enough.
Know. And I also said sneakers the other day instead of trainers, and that was upsetting. But I applied, and my friend said to me, well, what are you going to do if you don't get in? And I was like, I will get in. Well, you might not. And I was like, well, if I don't, I'll cross that bridge. But I'm not thinking like that. I'll get in. And I did get in. And I think the same way around, people try to talk to me out of doing Bossbabe, like, what do you know about it? And I was like, it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I always figure anything out. And the biggest thing that I see in getting in most people's way is themselves, being that victim. Oh, I can't possibly do that. It's okay for them. It's not okay for me. They were born this way. I was born that way. They learned to do this. They did this a degree, or whatever that is, any excuse. But really, when you create excuses, all you're doing is robbing yourself from the power. So if I say to myself, I can or I can't, I'm probably going to be right. So I choose to say I can figure it out, because I know that if I say I can figure it out, if I say I can do this, it might take, I'm not necessarily saying it will take me a year or 2 years, but I know I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I think taking the deadline out is a really important one that I've had to learn. Like when I'll have a sales target or whatever, I'll be like, that's the goal, but there's no deadline. So as long as I don't stop, then I will hit it. And like success is inevitable, kind of that.
Success is inevitable if you keep trying. And the other thing I've really learned, been really blessed to interview some amazing people here in LA. That's why I love living here and why I always continue to live here and do my retreats here, because you get epic people around you.
I already planned it in my calendar. April, I will be back.
You get amazing people around you, and I've been fortunate enough to interview several people who have sold their businesses for multiple millions, hundreds of millions, and billions. And I've interviewed so many of these people now on the podcast. And I used to love doing the Bossbabe podcast because it was really an excuse for me to be nosy. I could ask them anything and just hide it behind a podcast interview. But I realized that success is not a number in the bank account. Success is your ability to be happy and be content and have peace on your journey. That to me is true success, because I've met people with hundreds of millions in the bank account and doesn't mean they're happy. I've also got friends and I know people with like hardly any money in their bank account and they're really happy. And so that to me is what true success is. And being like, actually, you know what? Just because I have this in the bank account or do this, that isn't actually what's going to define how happy I am. I actually have to work on that internally and decide, okay, how I get to show up every single day is what makes me happy. I do think there is an element, and research has shown, I think which is so outdated now, and there'll be one for Belgium too.
The happiness limit.
No, where it's like, where it's like this, if you earn this amount of money.
It used to be $72,000 a year.
Was. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they definitely were not living in LA on $72,000 a year.
I have been surprised. I haven't been here in like 5 years, and I was like, whoa, everything has doubled.
Yeah, I don't think the exchange rate is helping you guys either. But it's really expensive here right now, particularly in LA. But, I do argue, but I do think that gets to a certain point, and I don't think that's millions. Like, I genuinely don't, because I've been at all the different levels, and I can say I'm like, my money isn't what makes me happy. It really is more around that fulfillment of, okay, I'm doing something that I love. I'm working with people that I love. I feel like I'm having a positive impact in the world, and I'm also getting time to spend with my friends or go on vacation or be with my partner or X, Y, and Z. Like, it's not, I no longer feel any needs to trade my happiness for money. Like that's not. And I do think you can hustle and that make you happy and you make more money. Amazing. Like if you can get that combination. But I think it's a really big myth and a really big misconception to feel like, oh, I'll be happy when I have this amount of money in the bank. Because I promise you, when you get there, you won't be unless you've done the inner work.
Yeah. I've heard myself say it like, oh yeah, okay, so the moment I realized I had so much money in my bank and I was like, okay, it really doesn't make you happy.
Yeah. You know what I do have as a practice that makes you happy is like I do gratitudes every day. So I used to write them down when I was single, but Darius and I do them together and we just wake up in the morning like 3 things you're grateful for, or we do it before we go to bed.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a gratitude, it's like a positivity in your mindset that you can't be irritated, annoyed when you're already embodying those pieces.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a mindset game, life.
Yeah. I have this journal that I got from you where I'm also gratitude journaling in now. I have a couple of questions. I'm also going to check the time as we're sitting here because I feel like we could talk for hours, but we can't because you are a busy woman.
A 4-hour podcast.
Yeah. Well, I learned last week at a certain retreat I was at that it's really good to make really long form podcasts. So
you did.
Next time is a 3-hour appointment.
For your YouTube channel.
Yeah, for my YouTube channel. This will have to be the YouTube channel thing. So there's one thing I wrote down that you posted 2-3 months ago, and it was about your screen time.
Oh yeah.
What about that? Because so full disclosure, when I work with clients and they're like, oh, I feel so bad, oh, my sleep is so bad, I'm like, do you take your phone to the bedroom? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not even going to talk to you until you change that. And I'm like, get a Philips wake up light. Start by not bringing the phone into the bedroom. But it is so much worse for everyone. Everyone, like, dopamine centers are fried. Everyone is addicted to their phone, myself included. What happened there? Because you're barely on your phone. Like, how do you do that? Was it always like that?
No. So basically, I decided to do it because I started noticing I was getting really anxious. And I was, like, checking my phone a lot. And I was, like, feeling like just this like feeling like I couldn't really be present. I was always like, oh my God, there's something to do. Like
on edge.
Yeah, like I was on edge.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that about myself and I was like, God, why am I being like this? And I realized, back in the day, like, I mean, I'm 35, I grew up, but like up until the age of 12, I didn't have a mobile phone. People used to ring my house or knock on my door. Like, hey, you're coming out to play, like that kind of thing.
Making money, the kid money.
Yeah. Or if I was like, if I was going out shopping with my mom, we would be like, hey, let's meet here in an hour. We're not like texting constantly.
I do kind of miss that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I realized that I miss that. And I realized that this being available constantly was actually hampering some of my creativity. It was actually making me unproductive. So I implemented a few strategies. So number one, and I'll kind of start with this way around. First of all, I stopped taking my phone to the bedroom and putting on Do Not Disturb and just leaving it outside. I couldn't actually trust myself to turn over in the morning and not look at my phone. So I got like a Hatch alarm clock and it like kind of plays like nice music. It also has a sunrise with it. So you can like, it's cute.
Like what I have.
Yeah. And so I did that to start with, and then I left my phone in the kitchen because I realized, and this is what I think everyone should be really honest about themselves, like how much does your self-discipline stretch to? My self-discipline did not stretch to not looking at my phone in the morning when it was right next to me. Like I would just look at it. So I did that first and foremost. Whenever I was working, I do 2 things. I always have Do Not Disturb on my phone. Like my friends tell you they can never get a hold of me because I have Do Not Disturb. And I always put my phone out of sight. So even if it's like behind my laptop screen or it's in a drawer, because if it's out,
apparently seeing it's a major trigger.
And then the third thing I did, which I did more recently, I actually did it when I was in vacation in Europe, when we were in Barcelona.
When we didn't meet up.
Yeah, when we didn't meet up. I was actually pregnant and I was like, oh my God, like how's she going to realize if I'm not like drinking? And I was so tired. Couldn't tell you that bit though. So I said to my partner, I tried it first of all on my own. I did the Instagram timer because you can actually like time like on Instagram how long you want to stay. But it just said, oh, you've reached your time limit. Okay. Well, I was just clicking off it all the time. Okay. And then I'd carry on.
I do that. It drives my partner crazy. It's screen time like after certain times because I don't want to be on my phone. And my partner is like, oh, I do have this on because you're always just pressing skip.
So what I did instead, which I think has increased my productivity, made me more focused, and has actually really helped just generally like my mental health around feeling like, so much better. Not that I was even feeling bad before. I just felt even more lighter. was I got my partner, there's a screen time option actually in your Apple phone. So there's one in the Instagram app, there's one in your phone, and you can lock it with a pin. And so he has the pin and I don't have the pin. So I can't get past it. So I get 25 minutes a day on Instagram and that's it.
So good.
And I can't get past it. I can if I'm in a launch, like I'll ask his permission. I'm like, can I have this off during a launch?
There it is. Please, can I launch?
Yeah, I'm in a launch. I need this off because I need to be replying to people. But generally, like I don't create my content on there. Like I create it in Canva and then post it that way. So it's just not necessary.
I've had it so many times that I'm in a live and then my phone is like, nope, you're done. I'm like, no, I still am in the live. Very bad.
That's not.
Yeah. Okay, so rapid questions. The one is the phone thing, super inspired. I think everyone should at least stop taking the phone to the bedroom. Sure. I think one really big insight that has helped me is I recently started clearing out my iCloud, which is a clusterfuck.
I mean,
but scrolling back, scrolling back, I see trips with my family. I see being in LA with my best friend. I see me with my partner. But you know what you don't remember? Lying in bed scrolling. It's not like, oh, that's a fond memory. No, it probably got you pissed off because you saw someone saying something shitty or a competitor made you insecure or stuff like that. So you won't ever be in a better mood coming off of your socials.
No, exactly. And that was like the realization that I had. I think social media is amazing. I think it's a great tool for building business. I think it gives you so much opportunity when it's used properly. And I think if you're not careful and you get into this habit of comparing your life to other people's, that can actually be a really dangerous place to be. Mine was just that I was just scrolling and I was losing time in my life. Like, hang on, I'm really busy. But if I looked at how long I'd spent maybe like scrolling that day, like I was like, oh, that doesn't.
Yeah, are you that busy then? Like,
yeah, and I wouldn't say I was like the worst social media user at all. I just also wanted to be better.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be at dinner and I'd pick my phone up to like look on Instagram. Why? I'm at dinner with my partner. Like, I don't need to be on Instagram right now.
Yeah.
It's so much out of habit. I would challenge anyone listening to this. Every time you start touching your phone, just notice and be like, oh, interesting. Because you can see how many times you pick your phone up during the day. It's a lot.
Yeah. I have been touching it now because I need to ask you the questions
that
I wrote down.
This one.
It's also like going down. Okay, so I have noticed in the current landscape online, there's a little bit of a drop happening. I've talked to a lot of people who are like, yeah, sales are down, traffic is down. I've seen it throughout many places. In the past, I've always said like, yeah, but whatever, or like it's not the sector, it's you. Used to be my thing more. Yeah. I'm starting to get a feeling that there is actually a little bit of a lull in the online space, and we talked about it last week. You know, what was working isn't working anymore. If you would advise one of my listeners or anyone online who wants to grow through their socials right now, what would be the number one thing that you would advise them not to do and to do instead?
Well, I think first and foremost, it really depends on the platform, but I'm going to go a little bit high level because I think this is the biggest mistake that lots of people make. They're like, oh my goodness, the only way to grow a business via social media. Incorrect. So you are consuming content from content creators. There's 4 billion people on social media, and only 1% of them are actually content creators. So you're actually just consuming content from a teeny tiny fraction of people, right? And these are people who, guess what, always getting paid to create content on social media.
Yeah.
But there's so many other ways to build a business. And I remember thinking this when I was a chiropractor. I didn't have a social media presence and I had like a huge company doing it a different way. So first of all, I just want to encourage everyone to take a high level approach and be like, okay, what is the best traffic source for me? Is it social media? If so, which platform? Or is it things like my website, my SEO strategy? Is it local newspapers, local magazines? Is it Google ad strategy? Like, is it sponsoring other people's podcasts? Like, what is it that actually is going to be a really, really strong traffic source with me? And engaging that, hang on a minute, where is my avatar? Where are they hanging out? And therefore where we can get them from. Because I think a lot of people they're like, oh my God, I must do this on social media. And that's going to like change everything. But really it's like only actually even going to work if you are marketing to those people and they're on that platform in the way that you're seeing them. So first and foremost, I'd step back. Second piece is platforms shift depending on what's happening in the economy, what's happening with the platform themselves. So if you think about like Meta, they spent a lot of money on the,
this smile happening on your face.
I just think it's really, really fascinating because social media is always it's like renting a house. Whereas your email list and your website, they're the houses that you own. No one's taking them away from you. And so it's really important always to mitigate that risk. And I never want a company to be reliant on one traffic source. Like, you should always be trying to diversify your traffic sources.
YouTube.
Like, diversifying your traffic sources so that you can be in lots of areas. I think there's less of a one thing fits all, and it's more of a case of, okay, depending on what social media, if you decide social media is important for you to be on, like that's like a place that you really need to be growing your business on this year. Okay, great. Then I want you to post and I want you to look at the insights. Most people just post and they're like, oh, that didn't do well. Versus, oh, that didn't do well. Let me try an iteration of that. Let me try some again. Oh, that did a bit better. What did I do differently around that? Okay, let me tweak this. Oh, that one didn't do. Actually, that one did worse. Let me do it again. Okay, this one did better. So really analyzing your content. People get very emotionally attached to the content they put out on social media. And if something doesn't do very well, they tend to take it personally. So giving yourself that freedom to be like, oh, I'm actually going to try things on social media right now. I haven't been getting the reach. I haven't been getting the engagement. I haven't been getting the comments. So let me change my strategy. Let me test, does this work better or not? Okay, now I might have over here, this post got the most comments or got the most likes or got the most saves in the last, 30 days. If I combine it with this post, then what happens? And just taking more of an analytical approach. And lastly, I will just say, you also want to remember, what is your social media for? Sometimes your social media is for traffic. Sometimes your social media is for a CV. Like, for example, my partner, he has a app for soccer coaches and soccer players. And his Instagram account isn't to bring traffic in. His Instagram account is more like a CV. Like, if you go to his Instagram account, you'll see him with some of the biggest players in the world. Like, that's what is important for his, not the growth of it. It's because people are going to, when someone comes into your vicinity for the first time to know, like, and trust you, they have to go through the awareness phase, which is, okay, I found you here, but then they want to research you. So they want to find you on another platform. They want to find you, whether it's a website or whether it's your social or, whatever that might be. So you have to really be thinking about, okay, well, where is my number one traffic source? Therefore, how do I want to use this platform? So you might say, okay, people are finding me on Instagram. They might want to search me a bit more. So then they're going to come to an email opt-in page or my website or my LinkedIn page. And what is my credibility that they're seeing on there? Just as too, I'm not focused on growth on my Instagram.
But you are posting once a day, right?
Yes. I mean, I would always say that you should be posting at least 3 times a week.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you because I personally I don't like the question like what time or how many times, but it is like, what is the minimum to post?
I mean, consistency is important in everything. Yeah. But that's whatever you're doing. Like, if you're wanting to get a traffic source, like, you have to be posting consistently.
I always tell my clients when they get confused, like, you wouldn't sporadically open your shop. No. You wouldn't have like different opening hours all the time, or like be like, oh no, we're not there for weeks on end, but not tell anyone. Like, you kind of have the doors to your shop.
Yeah, like the algorithm is going to be like, if you like showing like in and out, like it's like you're getting loyalty on the platform. So I think if you aren't posting every day, you should be at least posting 3 times a week. I don't want everyone to think, oh my God, like I'm not going to be successful if I don't.
What about email marketing?
In what regards?
What about, so for example, someone in the helping industry is what I like to call them. Mm-hmm. So coaches, chiropractors, I don't know, anyone who's like offering a service more to help people. Mm-hmm. How often should they be emailing their list? Well,
first of all, let's just make sure they know that there's a direct correlation between your revenue and how big your email list is.
I always say double the mails, double the sales.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. Does that work in Dutch too, or no?
I just say English sentences in Dutch.
Okay.
Like in my Dutch conversations. I think
that's a good one.
Yeah.
So I agree. And then I think when it comes to email marketing, it really is about whether you're nurturing or sending them into a sales funnel. So if you're sending them into a sales funnel where you are literally selling something over a period of time, you want a 10-part email sequence or a 7 to 10-part email sequence?
It's all I've been doing this
which
week is writing that sequence.
And you really want that to be like kind of firing over a maximum 2-week period. You want to be, every day engaging with them and sending them into a specific funnel with like one CTA or call to action in mind. You're not trying to sell them all the things. It's just like this one thing. If you're doing a nurturer sequence, like I do my newsletter, I only release that once a week.
Yeah.
That's fine if you're just doing a nurture and you're not actually selling anything at the moment.
Yeah. We can talk for many, many more hours.
Oh, we could talk for so many hours on that.
We'll get
That's
another
why
opportunity.
My retreat
for
was
that.
like 7 hours on these subjects.
But we'll get an opportunity to do that in the future. What I really wanted to make sure is that there are tidbits that will inspire and give value. And you've definitely done that. I have one closing question for you, which is, I heard you say something last week at your retreat, which was wonderful, by the way. I had such a good time. Honestly, I haven't felt this motivated in years.
Yay.
It's a lot of things shifted for me. I don't know. I'm just really happy I was there. But I heard you say it was during lunch or something. You were like, yeah, I haven't always been this disciplined going to the gym, but I've changed that. And I think I've seen that in your online growth because I've followed you for years, that you have become such a consistent, committed, disciplined person, both in your business as well as in your personal life. And you've had a real glow up. And so what did you do to start changing that? I don't think you were lazy or something ever, but I don't know. It feels like there's something that got unlocked or something.
I feel like this is unlocking a whole host of things though.
You can't.
This should have been at the beginning of the podcast. I think a lot of it was actually, I was an A grade student at school, and I told this story to my friend. She's actually putting it in her book. When I was 14, I hit 100% attendance record between the ages of 10 and 14 at my school, and they gave you an award for this. And I went to school and I was like 11. I was so sick, but I wouldn't take a day off because I wanted this 100% attendance award. But as I was coming into that, like, that 14, these teenage years, I started like, oh, boys, like, like girls, and like, we were like chatting and all this stuff. And I was due to get this award, but I faked a sickness day because I didn't want to stand out in front of everyone. I didn't want to shine. I didn't want people to know that I'd done 100% attendance. Like, I didn't want everyone looking at me and being like, oh, wow, she did that. And throughout my studies, I remember going to get my GCSE results, which is what you do when you're 16, in the UK, and everyone being really surprised. Like, I got 5 A stars and 4 A's, and most people thought I was probably going to get B's. I was like under the radar. And then I remember getting a first in my degree, and I found out I got a first in my degree because they released it on a board in alphabetical order, but without our names. So it was they put our numbers next to it, but it was in alphabetical order. So my friend came up to me and she was like, you got a first, you effing bitch. That's how I found out I got a first. Because, and again, so every time I'd like shone, people had been like very negative towards it. Like, so I was like, learned to not really stand out. Like, I didn't want to stand out. I would do the work, but I would do it behind the scenes without needing any gratitude, I didn't care what anyone felt. Like, I didn't really care that people knew. I kind of didn't want them to know. Like, I just wanted to do it for me. I didn't want to do it for any rewards or anything like that. And so that's like a very, very British mentality around like people will like tear you down when you're kind of like doing well. They don't like really like that. Love my Brits, but I'm sure they'll agree that that's true. Whereas when I came to the US, I really started to embrace kind of being like, okay, it's okay if people know I'm good at something. It doesn't mean that they're not going to like me or, it's going to be perceived in a certain way. And so I think it just started allowing me to come out my shell more. And, we haven't got time to go into this, but I actually was married. We were together 14 years. And I decided to leave my ex because when I did the height of when I was reaching the new heights in my career, he became really, really jealous.
Yeah.
And it was just like, he just did not like it at all. And again, that whole thing, like whenever I was shining, it really became a struggle. But I went to the Hoffman Institute. They have it in the UK. I don't know if they have it in Belgium, but they have it in America as well. And it's 6 day where you do a lot of trauma work and you do a lot of stuff on your inner child. And I did that in February 2022. And I would say that was the biggest I think that was the biggest shift for me. I'd started like shifting a lot as I went through my breakup in 2021 and met my partner, who's all really, really about like, you know, go shine, go do your thing. Like, but like that transition of working on myself at the Hoffman Institute and realizing it was okay to shine was probably one of the single best gifts I ever gave to myself, and probably where I also started like just letting go and just being like, oh, look, if you like me, cool, and if you don't, you don't. Like, and I'm also going to still be humble around stuff. I'm not going to be like bragging about it, but I'm also not going to hide it anymore. Like, I'm not going to not be me.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing, really.
I love the shine.
A long-winded answer.
No, I love that. I didn't know it was going to be that, so that's really good. Yeah. I love the shine. I love the spark. If people want to soak up some more of that shine, where can they go and find?
I'm probably most active on Instagram and now LinkedIn. Started posting a lot more on there. So just my name, Danielle Canty. And then if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, it's danielle-canty.com/newsletter. My newsletter is called The 2%. Because only 2% of women founders get to 7 figures. And I was like, you know what? We got to change that. So I just give marketing advice to people, how they can get more customers by doing better marketing every week.
Yeah, people should definitely go and check it out, because what I like about your content is it's very practical. It really boils it down. There's numbers. Like, for someone who loves facts like I do, it's fantastic.
I give everything away. I don't hold back in it. I'm just like, here you go. Yeah. Go implement this.
Danielle, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the Belgian audience mostly.
And
I know.
I'm international.
Can't wait to see everything evolve over the next couple of months.
Thank you. Appreciate it.